Hey everybody, Father Shawn here, Shawn the Baptist. This is the Shawn the Baptist show for April 2nd. It's not April Fool's Day, it is April 2nd, and so I am live today, doubly live, I guess. I am live from KEXS 1090 AM. I'm going to be on the air today, 4:30 to 6 with my good friend Ken Bellinger, and we are going to talk about Jesus, which is always a great thing. Especially as Shawn the Baptist, I like to talk about Jesus. Behold the Lamb of God. So we're going to do the show live on the radio here in just a few minutes, and so I'm live from the radio station, and I'm live on Shawn the Baptist. If you're looking for something to do, you can go check out the new design on my website I'm working on, shawnthebaptist.org. Go check that out. I'm trying to update it with the live show and the homilies and stuff, and make it a little more organized for things. So I'll be here in studio on the radio. We're just going to set the phone here and let it go so you can join live on the radio and live here online as well. All right? We'll be with you. All right, Ken.
Hey, we're good to go, I think. We're also live on Facebook Live here, so.
Okay, we're also live on
the Catholic Radio. And if there's two options, if you want, there's a slide there, if you want to, some people slide it out and set it down a little bit, if that's better for you, either way.
There we go.
Whatever.
All right.
All right, we're
Cool.
ready to rock here.
How much money do we need?
$2,400 by the top of the hour, so.
I'll see what I can do. All right.
And we are back. You're listening to the Catholic Radio Network Spring Pledge Drive here, and this is Ken Billinger, and we are welcoming in Father Shawn Tunick, and we're going to go to Father Shawn in just a moment. We want to get a couple things out of the way, and the next 90 minutes we have Father Shawn with us. It's always great to have him. He is such a Catholic radio guy. We're going to have him tell his story here in a little bit too, just about that back in his, I think it was in his college days. So we'll talk to him about that in just a moment. 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call this afternoon. 888-447-2425. And with that, you can, with your pledge, of course, you are helping us during our Spring Pledge Drive here at Catholic Radio Network. And this half hour, we are looking at, for the next 29 minutes, we need $2,400 or 8 calls, and we have a $500 match with that. So a couple things happen here. One, we can go for the $2,400, or we can go for 8 calls, and either way we'll get the $500 match with that. So $2,400 or 8 calls in the next 29 minutes. We're 31 minutes past the hour, and we want to welcome all of our network stations all across Catholic Radio Network, 18 stations that we're broadcasting to today, and our good friends in Colorado who are great supporters of Catholic Radio are with us as well. Normally we do Colorado, Wichita, and Springfield separately because of the situation we're in right now. We're doing a combined pledge drive, and our thanks to all the folks in all of the regions of our listening areas who have been so generous to support us. We've had a lot of calls, over 300 calls in the last 4 days, but we still have a ways to go. This is one of our key ways that we raise money for Catholic Radio, is our Spring Pledge Drive. That really makes up about 25 or 30% of the income for Catholic Radio Network. So your calls are so important to us. Prayerfully consider your pledge right now at 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call this afternoon. Our guest is Father Shawn Tunick, Associate Pastor, and he is at St. Patrick's Parish in KCK. Father Shawn, welcome in. Always great to have you.
Good to be back, Ken. Always love being on here. A little bit different time now with the virus everywhere. All of a sudden, socially distant can include radio. I mean, think where we'd be. As socially distant as we are, where we can't be around people, I have to think, where would we be without like the internet and technology like radio? I mean, this is really one of the things that's keeping everybody together, a chance to be able to, maybe not physically be together, but we can at least be together spiritually through great things like Catholic radio and the internet.
It was inspiring. We have a morning men's group at our parish, and the guys are all doing Zoom on Friday mornings just to get together. And I was inspired by the fact that
I had never heard of Zoom honestly, before this. I'd used things like Skype and FaceTime, and man, I wish I'd bought stock in Zoom, because I have never heard the word Zoom so many times in the last 2 weeks. So coronavirus is good for some people, I guess. People who make those wet wipe things, and Zoom.
Zoom and hand sanitizer. Yeah, that's the other one.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah. 888-447-2425 is our phone number to call this afternoon. Again, on the board, $2,400. We're looking for 8 calls. We have a $500 match up there. So 8 calls are $2,400 in the next 26 minutes. 34 minutes past the hour. As we continue, we are on with our pledge drive today until 6 o'clock Central Time, 5 o'clock Mountain Time. And we welcome in all of our listeners across the entire listening area, all the 18 stations of Catholic Radio Network in the 6-state area. So thanks for joining us. And again, we ask you to prayerfully consider your pledge here at Catholic Radio Network. And again, because obviously we have our Colorado listeners on, Father Shawn. Many of them, you may know a few folks in Colorado, but many probably don't know you. And I think one of the coolest things is the story that you share. And if you don't mind sharing that, we obviously want to talk about your vocation a little bit, but also the fact that you were so into Catholic radio that you pretty much wired your car back in the day to get Catholic radio. And I just love you to share that story if you don't mind.
Yeah, we kind of take for granted today with the internet and everything that it's so easy to just send radio all over the place. All you need is an internet connection, and everybody's got it on their cell phone now. A lot of times in the car, I just listen to, streaming or something over Spotify off of my phone. But back in the day, in your car, if you wanted to listen to stuff, you had to actually get it off the radio. And for me, one of my great things was I loved EWTN. And so I would try to get it on my computer while I was online. But then on my car, this is the days before cell phones, so we had a Catholic radio station, and it was great because I would listen to it in my car on the way to work. I was commuting from Lawrence to Kansas City. I was working for Sprint, and I would listen to the Catholic radio station. And we had Catholic Family Radio Network in Kansas City at the time, and then it went bankrupt and it closed. And all of a sudden there was no way in my car for me to listen to Catholic radio. And that had become my daily routine on my way into and out of work. And so I started looking around the EWTN website, and I saw that they had shortwave radio transmission. And I didn't know anything about shortwave radio actually. And I saw that, whoa, this goes like all over the world. And so, all right, how do I tune in this EWTN shortwave signal? And at that time, I went to Radio Shack, and I got a little shortwave radio receiver. And so I put it in my car, and I thought I would put up like the little antenna, the little telescoping metal antenna, and I put it in my dashboard. And so I'm going down K10 with this little radio sitting on my dashboard with a telescoping antenna, and it's like falling all over the place, and the antenna really didn't work very well. So I'm like, all right, I gotta up the game here so I can get better reception. So I went back to Radio Shack, and I'm like, oh, what can I do? And they've got this, it's like a long wire antenna that like coiled up in this little thing, and like 15 feet long. So what I did was I anchored my shortwave radio in the car, and I plugged in that, and then I like wrapped the antenna all the way around the inside of my car, so that I turned the entire top of my car into a shortwave radio antenna, and I could just finally get EWTN on shortwave. And no one ever rode in my car. They would have thought I was weird at that point, because I've got an antenna wire wrapped around the inside of my car and this little shortwave receiver sitting on there. But hey, that's what I had to do. I mean, you do what you got to do, and I did what I had to do because there was no Catholic radio locally in Kansas City at the time.
So that was like pioneering efforts right there.
That's how much we have to want it. You have to want radio enough that you would wrap a shortwave radio antenna around the inside of your car.
That's an amazing story. Our guest is Father Shawn Tunick this afternoon, sharing his story of love for Catholic radio. And again, right now we're looking at $2,400 in the next 22 minutes. $2,400 or 8 calls before the top of the hour. We have a $500 match built into that, so we want to get either the 8 calls or the $2,400. How much of that can you help us with this afternoon? Call us at 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call. You can also donate online, by the way, at CatholicRadio.com. Like Father Shawn talked about, Catholic Radio is really available about anywhere. We've got the app. You can donate there. You can donate online. We have the streams online as well, and or listening to obviously our stations around the Midwest and the Rocky Mountain region, and we give you that opportunity. So call us with the pledge this afternoon. It is through our listeners that we are supported. Catholic Radio is supported by listeners. 99% of our income, roughly, is all due to the help of our listeners, the folks who pledge each and every year. We appreciate it so much. And again, you can do a one-time pledge, you can do a monthly pledge, whatever works for you. The other thing we mention is, sometimes things happen. Sometimes life happens. And if you made a pledge, and let's say you set it up and you're doing monthly, and 5 months goes by and you lose your job, something changes, it's okay. You just simply call us and say, hey, I've got to put this on hold for a while, or I just can't do it right now. We're not going to argue about that at all. We understand that things happen. We'll take care of you there as well. 888-447-2425. And again, we'd love to hear from you this afternoon. We've had a number of calls. We've had over 300 calls in the last 4 days, but we've got to keep going. We've got some big numbers to meet, and you can help us out. We've got different levels of giving that you can do, and we'll talk more about that coming up as well. Because when you pledge, actually, let me just hit that real quick for our folks who are maybe just tuning in this afternoon. $120 pledge, you'll pick up on Mother Angelica's mini book. There's a number of mini books that she had that are no longer in print, but we have a number of copies available that we're giving away this week. Also, for $360, you can pick up on the Lent Eastertide edition of In Conversation with God. It is a great meditative resource that you can use, about 600 pages, and that is good to use right up to Pentecost, so there's still plenty of time to use that book, and you can use it again obviously year after year, so you'll have it for next year. With a pledge of $600 a month, or $600 or $50 a month, pick up on one of Father John Riccardo's book, either the book Heaven Starts Now or Rerouting, Finding Our Way Back to God and His Church. And then we have the $1,200 level as well. You'll get all of those items. And then the other special level that we have, and we've had a number of people join as part of the founder level with Catholic Radio, and that is $3,600 one-time pledge, or $300 a month for a year, or $100 a month for 3 years. And you can do that. You'll get all the items we talked about, plus a beautiful founder's plaque that you can have put whatever you need to put on it. You can proudly hang it in your home or business, or do it in memory of somebody or in honor of somebody, as well as a founder level for Catholic Radio. 888-447-2425. Let's get the phone lines ringing this afternoon. We'd love to hear from you. Again, we've had over 300 calls this week, and we want to keep the numbers going. We'd love to hit about the 500 call mark this afternoon, or between this afternoon and the end of the day tomorrow. 888-447-2425 is the phone number. Call us right now, and again, you can pledge online at CatholicRadio.com. Father Shawn Tunick is our guest this afternoon, and Father Shawn, you also might want to mention you're doing the Shawn the Baptist show at the same time, correct?
Yeah, so people know I've got my online ministry, I suppose you'd call it, and Shawn the Baptist is kind of my brand, I suppose, if you will, because Shawn, my name, is the Irish version of John. And so I remember I was a teenager, and I was reading about patron saints, and how each of us has a patron saint, often from our name. And Shawn is the Irish version of John, so I'm like, okay, which John is my patron? And so I prayed about it, because I like to think the saints kind of pick us as well. And John the Baptist was really someone that came to my mind, kind of a fiery prophet, preacher kind of guy who his whole mission was to prepare the way for Jesus. And I thought, he'll be my patron. And so that was when I was a teenager. Little did I know that one day I would become an actual Baptist, and that I baptize people. But so I'm Shawn the Baptist, and so when I kind of created my online ministry, it's been about 15 years ago now, I started my first blog when I was still in seminary, and then eventually, after I was ordained, people started asking for homilies, and I don't write out my homily, and so I started audio recording them and putting them on my website, and now we're up to 460 some weekend homilies on ShawnTheBaptist.org. So just because of pandemic time, the next thing that it seems like the Holy Spirit wanted me to do was to create an online show, if you will. So I created the Shawn the Baptist show, and so it is live right now on Facebook. So normally I do the Shawn the Baptist show at 6:30 every night, but I'm not going to be able to get back to my studio because I'm in your studio. Right. So I've got the phone in the corner so that everybody on Shawn the Baptist can check that out. So this is going live on Facebook, and then what I do is I upload it to YouTube afterwards so people can get that, and you can get it all at ShawnTheBaptist.org.
So no locust and wild honey.
Locust and wild honey. It is Lent, so it is time for fasting. I stick to more protein. The honey is too much sugar, and locusts are out of season. Okay. So I go for the protein packs of things, and
there you go. Well, we're going to, again, update you right now. We're waiting on the phones to ring this afternoon. Been a little quiet. We've had, again, over 300 calls this week, which has been great. But right now we have $2,400 up on the board, 8 calls. We've got a $500 match with that. So either 8 calls or $2,400. We'll get to use that $500 match if we hit either one of those. And the phone number to call is 888-447-2425, 888-447-2425. And we have 15 minutes left, just 15 minutes. We're 45 minutes past the hour. And so really a short amount of time and a pretty big goal that we want to hit. So if you can start us off. By the way, the first person who does start us off will pick up on a $15 Mystic Monk Coffee gift card as well, because a lot of times what happens, we get that first call, and then it's can sometimes domino from there. That's what we hope for this afternoon. 888-447-2425, 888-447-2425. Give us a call. We would love to hear from you this afternoon. And again, we welcome your pledges at 888-447-2425. We are also on Facebook Live right now as well. I know Father Shawn, I forgot to mention that we do have Facebook Live back up, so if you want to check things out here, or maybe you have a question for Father Shawn, we'll kind of monitor that as well. That's certainly one way we can do it, or you can certainly call us with questions this afternoon. 888-447-2425. Father Shawn Tunick, our guest. We're talking about a little bit of radio history and where you were, obviously the shortwave radio to get Catholic radio in your car, and you've had that passion for Catholic radio for a while. But where did the calling come from for you? I know you were talking about patron saint as a youngster, so obviously you were into your faith at a pretty young age, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was blessed to be raised in a great Catholic family, and my mom and dad both came from large Catholic families. They're both families of 5, and everybody in my family's been Catholic, and when I do genealogy research, we've been Catholic back hundreds of years. So I feel that really our faith is something that, as much as it is individual, that we each have to claim at some point to be intentional about being a disciple, it's also something that we're blessed to have handed down to us. So parents, and shout out to all the parents right now who are learning how to be homeschoolers. How's that going? Ultimately I think it's a great thing actually that our parents are having to live out that vocation to be the primary educators of their kids. Like, surprise, that's for real. You get to do it now. But especially when it comes to the faith, that people can find it on their own a little bit, but man, I was blessed that I was raised in a family that took the faith seriously, and at that time we thought we're just typical Catholics. We actually went to Mass every Sunday and prayed grace before meals. My mom prayed with me before I went to bed, and really that idea though that we just went to Mass every Sunday, that's becoming almost abnormal these days. they did these surveys lately. Hey, a phone's ringing.
Yeah, I love
Hey,
that.
that's good
There
news.
we go. Keep it
Thanks,
going.
people.
First call. Keep it going.
But they did those surveys a while back to say, that people who identified themselves as being like devout Catholics meant that they went to Mass most Sundays. I'm like, okay, so gotta go to Mass on Sunday under pain of mortal sin. So, I mean, we can talk about what that means, but still, devout, I don't know. I'm thinking you gotta at least be like going to Mass every day, maybe if you're gonna say Mass is a quality for being devout. But people going to Mass every Sunday does not make you a devout Catholic. It just means you're not in mortal sin. It makes you, at best, a minimal Catholic. But my family did that. And I can honestly say I have no memory in my entire life of not going to Mass on a weekend, ever. I mean, we would travel these big vacations in the summer and drive all over the United States, and we always found Mass on the Sundays and the holy days. And, I think, man, I just took that for granted. That's how it is. And it's just not that way anymore.
Yeah,
People prioritize so many other things. So, I mean, where does a vocation come from? I mean, it's not a once and done kind of call from God. I used to wish that it would be kind of so obvious as that. I wanted God to send me an angel, quite frankly. Like Mary got, like Gabriel would come and tell me. But I can certainly see now that my whole vocation is really the product of a long process that began, before I was born. It began with the faithfulness of my ancestors who went before me, the faithfulness of my parents. I just was born into that. But, at some point especially, it does become personal. And that the time I remember that the greatest kind of first movement, I guess, of really God in my life, I was in second grade, preparing for my first Holy Communion, and I remember finding in our family Bible, like, how to pray the rosary. And, like, I got this rosary, but I didn't know how to pray the rosary. We didn't pray as a family, and so I started learning how to pray the rosary, and then I set up this little prayer corner in my room with all my statues and stuff I was getting for First Communion, and so there was, I don't know, just this, what I see now is just kind of a beautiful working of God on my heart from a very early age to call me to himself. And I don't know if that's so unique to me, but I certainly know that I recognize that now as something special. And that just kind of grew over time, that I always had this friendship with God. And of course in high school, I was playing trumpet every Sunday at Mass, and I was lector, and I was altar server, and people were like, whoa, that's strange for a high school kid. What are you doing? You should be a priest. I'm like, hey, no, I'm just doing, my church stuff, and love God. Nothing strange about that. And then it kind of came up again in college. Just all of a sudden people start to see that you love Jesus, and you love church, and you should be a priest, shouldn't you? And I'm like, maybe not. But it's a long process.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that. We do have an update on the board, $200. Thank you for that pledge. We want to keep that going. Whoever just called with the $200 also picks up on the $15 gift card from Mystic Monk Coffee. We have those. We're giving away to the first person who kind of breaks the ice each segment, each 30 minutes. And we have a new challenge up on the board, $2,400. We have $2,200 to go now. We need 7 calls or $2,200. We have a $500 match as well. And we'd love to hear from you now at 888-447-2425. Help us out. Let's get closer and inch our way to that goal. We don't have much time. We have about 8 minutes before the top of the hour. 888-447-2425. That's 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call again. Thank you so much for that pledge at 888-447-2425. You can also go online at CatholicRadio.com. Again, online at CatholicRadio.com and click on the button there to make your pledge. 888-447-2425. We need now 7 calls or $2,200 to reach that goal by the top of the hour. We've had a lot of calls in the last 3 days, or 3.5 days, or almost 4 now, I guess. And we want to continue that and keep rolling. We need the calls, we need the pledges, because we are listener supported. 99% of the income for Catholic Radio comes from our listeners. So if you can help us out, it's so important to do that at 888-447-2425. Our guest, Father Shawn Tunick, who is the associate pastor at St. Patrick's in KCK. Father, we were talking about Sunday, just getting to Mass on Sunday. Are you surprised at the number of the people that really don't even, there's so many, and obviously it has to do with catechesis, people that don't know that, we're supposed to go every Sunday? I mean, is that number surprising? It seems like there's a lot of people that maybe that way.
Well, I think it's a two-edged kind of thing. On the one hand, yes, there was a time when everybody just went to Mass because that's what we have to do, and that's good, because whenever we have rules that kind of help kind of stabilize our life and let us know where the boundaries are, that's good, because then we know when we've crossed it. But it doesn't mean that just because lots of people were going to Mass, in the 50s and 60s, that everyone was an intentional disciple or a missionary disciple. Far from it. But at least people went, and you knew that if you were skipping Mass on Sunday, that you were getting kind of outside the bounds. Today, it's like we don't know where the boundaries are, and so people are just kind of flailing all over the place looking for happiness. Like, I'll run over here and I'll try this, and will that make me happy? And then I'll run over here and try this, and does that make me happy? And it doesn't make you happy; it makes you exhausted in the end. And we think of all the places where we're running to. We had the beautiful gospel of the woman at the well a couple weeks ago. A beautiful image of baptism where Jesus meets this woman at the well who's had 5 husbands, and the one she's with now is not her husband, and she's coming to this well to get water all the time, and Jesus comes and says, "Hey, I want to give you living water." And she's like, "Yes, I want that. I don't want to ever have to come to this well again." And Jesus is, of course, speaking spiritually, but how many times do we keep going to like these wells that, we just, I'm going to try to draw a little bit of water from the internet, get a little bit of joy from the internet, then I'm going to go play some sports and get a little bit of joy there. We just keep going and drawing water over and over, and it never satisfies the way that Jesus wants to be that spring of living water for us. So people that keep going to Mass, even when maybe they don't think it's required or a rule, largely those are people who get it. They know, like, I found the spring. I come to Mass and I get the Eucharist and I have Jesus in my life because nothing else satisfies. I just got to keep going back to other wells otherwise.
One of the questions I had too, and I was talking with a friend of mine about this, I said, do you think now that we really don't have access to physically going to Mass, that people will realize what they're missing? And I think the conversation kind of ended up saying, well, if they're not going now, they're probably not missing it, unfortunately. You hope that we tend to take things for granted. We're free to, celebrate. We have that religious freedom right now. Many countries don't, but we're blessed to have that. But even so, obviously the people that do go to Mass are certainly missing it and wanting it. But those folks that maybe aren't getting to Mass, they're not missing something now because they weren't going before.
Yeah, although there's something unique about this in that I think that if somehow all that happened was our church is closed, people would find all kinds of stuff. They'd be playing sports and they'd just slowly drift away. But the unique thing about this virus time is it's not only that we can't go to Mass, it's a lot of that other stuff that we were putting in the place of Mass, it's gone too.
Right.
So all of a sudden, it's like God gave the whole world, a 30-day retreat. Priests are required to make like an 8-day retreat every year, and I've been blessed to even do a 30-day retreat. You get away from the Facebook and the sports and entertainment and everything, and you're just alone with God. Well, right now, I think, we can't go to Mass, and so maybe people aren't necessarily missing that were, but you've got more time to think. And especially if some of your thoughts are, wow, people are dying everywhere. That kind of presses the issue a little bit about, all right, what is my life really about? Now that all this other stuff has been taken away, now what is my life about? And what if my life were taken from me? That's a fertile area for the Spirit. I mean, it's sad, it's traumatic what we're going through, but that's also good fertile ground, I think, for the Spirit to work in this time.
Yeah, great point. We're talking with Father Shawn Tunick this afternoon. We are at 58 minutes past the hour. We have 2 minutes left. We just got another pledge on the board, and we have $565 up there, leaving $1,835 as a need for the next couple of minutes. So we need 6 calls, $1,835. what portion of that can you help us with this afternoon to reach that goal? Because we have a $500 match that will add to that if we're able to hit it. We have a long way to go, short time to get there, as the old song goes, but you can do it right now with a minute and a half to go. A minute and a half, so 90 seconds. And we want to get the phone lines ringing right now. Let's get a couple lines ringing. $1,835. Sometimes we get a short person at the end of the hour that says, hey, whatever you're short, I will fill in and cover for you. So you might be that short person. We're not talking short in stature, of course, but somebody who's willing to help us out and fill in the gap and say, whatever you're short, I'm going to make that up. So you make that goal for that 30 minutes. 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425. We've got 2 more challenges before the end of the day after this one, so we want to meet this challenge right now. And again, you can call us. You can go online to CatholicRadio.com. That's another way that you can give, and click on the donate button there. Also on the app as well. So call us this afternoon with your pledge at 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425. We just have about 45 seconds left, so let's get the phone lines ringing so we can tackle this $1,835. 888-447-2425 is the phone number. Help us out this afternoon with your pledge. We're on throughout the entire network region, both in the Rocky Mountain region in Colorado, Kansas, Missouri. All of our stations on. We'd love to hear from you this afternoon to support Catholic Radio Network. 888-447-2425 or online at CatholicRadio.com. While we're waiting for the final call here, and again, we're about to wrap it up because we're at the top of the hour, and this goes away, and so we want to try to achieve getting that goal hit and meet that goal this afternoon. You're listening to KEXS 1090 AM and 92.9 FM Excelsior Springs, Kansas City, KMVG 890 AM Gladstone, Kansas City, KMDR or KDMR 1190 AM Kansas City, KEXS 106.1 and 106.7 Ravenwood in St. Joseph, KPIO 93.7 FM in Pleasanton, Kansas, KPHN 1360 AM and 96.7 FM El Dorado, Wichita, KQOH 91.9 FM Marshfield, Springfield, KRCN 1060 AM and 92.1 FM Longmont, Denver, KRCN KCRN, that is 1120 AM Black Forest, Lyman, and KFAL 970 AM and 96.9 FM Pueblo, Colorado Springs. That is the Catholic Radio Network of stations, and we welcome you into the final hour of our Spring Pledge Drive this afternoon. The phone number to call to make your pledge is 888-447-2425, 888 His Bible, and you can help us out with your pledge this afternoon. We've got the final hour. We've got a couple more challenges that will go up on the board here, and we'll get that information to you here just very shortly. And again, when you pledge, you've got all kinds of things that you can pick up on as far as items, that giving levels that there are. We have a number of donors who give $10 a month, a number who give $20 a month. We have the $1 a Day Club members as well, who are giving $30, basically $1 a day. We have the Disciples at $600 a year or $50 a month. The Apostle level at $100 a month or $1,200 a year. And also the Founder level, which is $3,600 either one time, $3,600 or again over the course of a year at $300 a month, or a course of 3 years at $100 a month. And then we've had just a lot of miscellaneous gifts that have been given as well. We've got names up on the board, and there's a whole bunch of names. Again, we've had over 300 calls this week, which we love, and we want to continue to keep those calls rolling in this afternoon. 888-447-2425. All right, here is our next challenge for this half hour until the bottom of the hour for the next 28 minutes. We need $3,000. We just got an online donation. Thank you so much for that $500 donation online. We appreciate that. So we have a $2,500 need now. Again, we've shaved off $500 of that. $2,500 in the next 28 minutes. Can you help us with your pledge at 888-447-2425? You can also, as this person just did, go online and donate there at CatholicRadio.com. 888-447-2425. And our guest this afternoon, Father Shawn Tunick, Shawn the Baptist from St. Patrick Parish in KCK, Kansas City, Kansas. Welcoming him in this afternoon. We're just talking really about the faith. And one of the things, there's a lot of tragedy that we're dealing with this pandemic. Obviously, death and people who are sick and people who are dying alone, which is really hard. It's really tough for me to wrap my head around how tough that's got to be for families. But one of the things you talked about, Father Shawn, is just the fact that it's causing people now to take, there's not a soccer game to run to, there's not a baseball game to go to, there's not, dance lessons or whatever, all of these things that tend to keep us running, especially younger families, or just, it doesn't matter whether it's younger family or older, just on the run so many times, we just don't take that time to really have peace and quiet. And this is really causing us to, maybe be able to do that. We've got some friends that had said, they've got 3 kids and they're very active in sports. And they said, now after the evening meal, we sit down and we pray as a family together. So we're starting to see those things happen, and I think that's the fruit of this as well.
That even happened in my own family. I mentioned that we had not necessarily been a family that prayed the rosary together, but so Holy Family School of Faith, Mike Scherschlicht and Holy Family School of Faith has been doing daily rosary meditations. So dailyrosary.net. I plugged ShawnTheBaptist.org, so also check out dailyrosary.net. And so Mike's got a podcast every day of some rosary meditations, and I was having dinner with my family, and I just said, hey, why don't we pray the rosary? Pulled in my iPhone, stuck it on the table, pressed play, and they didn't really have a choice after that because we're going to do it. So we've done that a couple times, just to pray together. But it's one of those things where, all right, we don't have anywhere to be now. Normally my mom calls up and she's like, oh, I know you're so busy, and like now, truth is that sometimes mom will call up and I'm maybe not all that busy, but okay, now, like, everybody knows if that's your excuse, it's not real, okay? Because everyone now, the idea that, well, we just don't have time is probably not a valid excuse. Now, for all those parents out there trying to scramble to figure out how to teach calculus to your now homeschooled high school kid, okay? Sure. But for most of us, this is a time where at least probably we have more time than we used to. And so I always talk about for Lent anyway, okay, give something up. So people give up chocolate, whatever. I'm like, okay, fine. But give up something else. Like, if you give something up, also add something. So I would always say, like, maybe you give up TV. Great. Well, add something then. Instead of watching TV, maybe you all gather as a family and you pray. Or it doesn't have to be super religious. Maybe you play a board game. Maybe you just talk about how your day went. But take something out, fast from something, and then add something back. Well, right now we've all been asked to fast from a bunch of stuff we never thought we would ever have to fast from. Okay, that's been forced on us, but let's add stuff. Okay, we've got time now. Don't just like, I'll learn new video games. Okay, no, go out, play in the yard. Okay, we all got a shelter in place and can't go maybe the normal places like the baseball field to run around. Go play in your backyard or something. Smear, hand sanitizer all over your basketball and go out and play or something. Be creative. I think a lot of times we fall into the same old things like those wells because we've just always done it, and it always distracts us, and it seems like it works. Well, try something new. Go out and take a walk. Go up a forest. Play with your dog. As far as I know, dogs don't carry COVID. We have a cute little dog running around the studio here, so that's awesome.
Sue.
Yeah, we have cats at St. Patrick's. So Derek and Madeline, they are not COVID carriers. So I'm making friends with the cats because they're half of the occupants of the rectory right now. Those are the people that I see, are the cats.
Right, the cats that you see. 888-447-2425 is the phone number. We have two lines now. Another line ringing. We have one person on the line. Looks like we've got a second line ringing now. So 2 folks on the line right now with a pledge. We've got a big push here for $3,000 between now and the bottom of the hour, which is about 22 minutes away. 22 minutes. We have, again, $3,000. We've had a pledge of $500 online, so we have $2,500 in the need column. We've got a couple of callers on the line, and we also have, of course, we want to keep that phone line ringing this afternoon, so still a couple of phone lines open. Can you help us out with your pledge at 888-447-2425, online at CatholicRadio.com. You can do that as well. We just had our first pledge of this half hour was an online pledge. That person also picked up on a Mystic Monk Coffee gift card as well. So again, when you break the ice and do that, as we start a new pledge, we always look for that person to break the ice, and we throw in that little extra bone with the Mystic Monk Coffee gift card. 888-447-2425, 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call. Here at Catholic Radio Network, we are on network-wide this week. We've combined our pledge drive simply because of the COVID-19 situation we're dealing with, so we don't have folks traveling all over the place. So normally Wichita and Springfield and Colorado have separate pledge drives, but we're combining them all into one. So your help is certainly will benefit us and benefit Catholic Radio. So prayerfully consider your pledge at 888-447-2425. That's the phone number this afternoon. We're going to get an update on the board. The phone lines are now empty, and we did get another call. We're going to get an update and let you know where things stand. We are also, by the way, on Facebook. So, okay, we've got another $500 donation. So that's, now we're down to $2,000. So $2,000 remain on the board with the first two callers each donating $500. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to jump back. We are on Facebook Live, so if you're listening and want to see Father Shawn on Facebook, he's there. He's also got the Shawn the Baptist show, which will be now.
It's live right now. We've
live.
got we got 12 people on there, and shout out to Paulina Felicia Torres Portillo, who commented that she loves the Shawn the Baptist show and Catholic Radio.
Awesome.
So awesome. We've got some people online that are with us here, and the Shawn the Baptist show will be recorded up there after this is done, so
awesome.
Maybe we'll get more calls.
Yeah, that's great. The other thing I was going to mention too, because we had was that on Monday? No, it was actually on Tuesday. We had Chiefs kicker Harrison Butler in here, and I think you were really kind of noted for making him famous, right?
That and him like winning the Super Bowl and kicking some field goals. No, I'm pretty sure he helped make Shawn the Baptist famous.
Well, I guess maybe you made him famous as a server of the Latin Rite Mass or something like that.
It's really kind of the way God worked through all that. I've always loved the sacred liturgy, and that's what I studied for an advanced degree in the church, a sacred theology license. And but I never knew anything about the Latin Mass. I mean, I'm 43 years old, so I grew up well after Vatican II, so I never knew anything about the Latin Mass. But as a priest, I started to see that people started to ask for it a lot. And it wasn't like old people who were like nostalgic because I lived before Vatican II and I can't change. No, these are like young families who, have been going to the new Mass, and they're like, hey, can you do the Latin Mass for us? And I'm like, well, I actually, I don't know how. And they're like, oh, but you're the liturgy guy. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know the Latin Mass. And finally, when I was studying canon law in Washington, D.C., I realized I had to learn all this Latin for law, and I wanted something like holy to do with it, so I thought maybe now's the time to learn the Latin Mass. So I took my Christmas vacation to go up to Denton, Nebraska, to Our Lady of Guadalupe Seminary for the priestly fraternity of St. Peter, and took like a little week-long workshop that they have to learn the Latin Mass. And I really enjoyed it. There's so many things that opened my eyes to the history of the Mass, that just the way we do Mass now, there are a lot of things in there that like you wouldn't necessarily know, that, oh wow, that came from this in the Latin Mass. So I got back to Washington after that, and I said I wasn't going to do it publicly unless people asked for it. People came out of the woodwork asking for it, so I'm like, wow, there's something here. But when I got to St. Michael's Parish in Leawood, I was there as an associate pastor a couple years ago, and I, on my day off, would just by myself celebrate the Latin Mass. And then some of the staff at the church started saying, well, can we come? I'm like, yeah, well, I guess. And I would normally have like the 6:40 morning Mass, and I saw this couple that kept coming, and they were a young couple, and I didn't recognize them, but she always wore a veil, and they both of them always knelt for communion. I'm like, well, they're super Catholic here for a young couple. And so I just remember one day after Mass, I went up and I talked to them and said, hi, I'm Father Shawn. And he's like, I'm Harrison, this is my wife Izzy. And like, oh, very, very nice to meet you. I'm new here, so I don't know everybody. And like, are you parishioners here? Like, well, we live like 4 minutes away. But, you know, we go someplace else on the weekends. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And so what kind of work do you do? He's like, I'm the kicker for the Chiefs. I'm like, oh, that Harrison. Oh, okay. I said, wow, so you're parishioners? And like, well, you know, we go to the Latin Mass on the weekend. I'm like, really? Where at? Well, St. Mary's at Independence. I'm like, you drive all the way to Independence every weekend to go to Mass? Yeah, we can't find it around, you know, here. And I'm like, well, I mean, I know how to celebrate the Latin Mass. And Harrison is like, really? Wow, can I serve for you?
Wow.
I'm like, you're a server too? He's like, absolutely. And I'm like, well, what about Thursday? He's like, well, I'm serving for Father Bartuluca up at St. Mary's on Thursdays. Like, how about Monday? I'm like, well, I could do that. And so it just became one of these things that he said they like to sleep in on Mondays after the games to relax. And so we would have a low Mass every Monday evening at 5 o'clock. You know, not on the schedule, just, Harrison, you want to do Mass? Okay, Father Shawn, I'll be there. And we do it. And then pretty soon people like, well can we come? And then like Charlie, our high school kicker for Aquinas, is like, can I come? And can Harrison teach me about kicking and serving? And so literally I've got the Chiefs kicker teaching my altar servers how to serve the Latin Mass, and on the side teaching them how to kick on their high school football team. It's a win-win all over the place. And so that became an every Monday kind of thing that just by word of mouth spread. And so a year ago, on March 25th, for the Solemnity of the Annunciation, we decided we would do a solemn high Mass. So deacons, subdeacon, master of ceremonies, we had like 13, 14 altar servers, huge scola, and all of a sudden with no schedule on the parish calendar or anything, we had like 400 people show up at 5 o'clock on a Monday for solemn high Mass in the extraordinary form. And so I actually had Harrison on the Shawn the Baptist show this past week on March 25th on the 1-year anniversary of that. And so if you want to see another interview with Harrison Butker talking about his Catholic faith, go to ShawnTheBaptist.org and click on the Shawn the Baptist show. And it's for March 25th. Harrison Butker, he was the first guest on the Shawn the Baptist show.
Wow, we're going to talk more about that in a minute. I want to update the board here. We got another $250 pledge. Thank you so much. So we've kind of flipped the sides here, and we only need $1,250, $1,250, and we have 14 minutes to go. We only have $1,250 to go. We just had another pledge here of $750. So thank you so much. We've had two $500 pledges, a $750 pledge. $1,250 is all that's left between now and the bottom of the hour, and we have 14 minutes. What's that?
Need a short person.
Yeah, we take a short person.
I'm 5'7".
And if you don't know what a short person is, that's somebody who said, if you know, whatever you're short at the end of the time, and when the time runs out, whatever you're short, I'll cover. It may be $1,250, it may be $350, it may be $500. Who knows? But that short person, that's what they do. That's why we call them that, and they're tall in our books for sure by helping us out. So if you want to be that short person, $1,250 is what's on the board right now. We have 13 minutes left. 13 minutes before the bottom of the hour. Help us out with your pledge at 888-447-2425. Online at CatholicRadio.com. You can also pledge there as well. So make sure you do that. 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call, and also CatholicRadio.com to go online. You know, one of the things, we had Harrison in here, and it was just such a pleasure to have him in. I think it was actually Dominic who interviewed him. But one of the cool things that I think, and it's, you know, I thanked him at the end. I said, Harrison, thank you for your witness to the faith. Thank you for being a good, positive pro sports role model. We're missing that so much today, and it's great to have guys like Harrison, who is a great positive role.
You know, I was sitting down the other day at his house, and we were talking about how he sees like his Catholic future. I love this. He's a young man. He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
He's 24 years old. He's won the Super Bowl already. He's got his wife and his kids, and it's just everything seems to be going. And he's gotten so much Catholic publicity after this now. First the EWTN video with he and I about the Latin Mass and his conversion, and now the Super Bowl. That he's actually had to get a Catholic manager kind of to manage his Catholic request, because I knew it was going to be a problem, because all of a sudden people started messaging me from like all over. Father Shawn, we live in Rhode Island. We saw you on EWTN with Harrison Bucker. Can you get him in touch with us? We'd like him to speak to our men's group, or whatever. And like I'm like, Harrison, I'm kind of like your clearinghouse here. He's like, I know, I got a Catholic manager that I've hired to help manage all the charitable kind of things. But I love it because Harrison looks at it and he says, I want to see God's blessed me with all this fame and attention. How can I use that for good? And we had a conversation because he's like, I want to know, like, where do you think I should invest? Should it be the Latin Mass, or what? And so, wow, what great questions to be asking. I mean, you just won the Super Bowl after like, oh, I'm going to Disney World, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, great. Now what? And Harrison, and I think a lot of people right now are asking questions. They want to know, what is their life about? And so many times we get caught up in like one thing, whether it be sports and then you got to step back and ask the big questions. I mean, this is somebody who just won the Super Bowl and is saying like, okay, what is my life about? It's not just about football. It's about my wife, my kids, and God, my vocation. And wouldn't we all have that kind of time for reflection? And I hope COVID is a time for that, where we kind of step back and say, all right, what is my life about? If I died of this virus, in a week or something, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And has my life been about the thing that God wanted it to be about? Or has it been what I wanted it to be about, and I'm like, I'll get to God later? And those are good questions to be asking right now. I love it because Harrison and his wife Izzy they pray about this, and so there's someone trying to use the gifts God gave them, not just on the football field, but trying to influence the culture as well. And we're all called to that.
And at 24 years old, very young, and just seems to really have his head screwed on straight. So really,
Yeah.
very impressive. 888-447-2425. 20 minutes past the hour. We have 10 minutes left. We only have $1,250 to go. We want Father Shawn to ring the bell here if we hit our goal by the bottom of the hour. $1,250 is all we need, and we started with a $300 need. We're down to $1,250. Can you help us out? What part of that can you help us to reach this afternoon? 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call to make your pledge here at Catholic Radio Network. You can also pledge online at catholicradio.com. It's very simple to do that as well. We've had a number of online givers this week, and we encourage you to make your pledge right now. How has Catholic Radio impacted you? And if you're a listener, you love Catholic Radio, you want to see Catholic Radio succeed, we really certainly do need your help. Because we are listener based. That's how it's through our listeners that we're supported. So we're listener supported. 99% of the dollars that come in, or close to that, are all from our listeners who support us. So carefully and prayerfully consider your pledge to Catholic Radio Network right now. 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425. We're only $1,250 away to reach that goal, and we have about 8 minutes left. And so what part of that can you help us with to reach the $3,000 mark by the bottom of the hour? 888-447-2425.
Ken, a lot of things are canceled right now except for essential things. And I thought it was kind of interesting that radio is one of those things that is considered essential, that is allowed to keep going. And, I'm pretty edified by that these electronic means of communication that we've got now allow us to come together even when we can't go physically. I mean, think where we'd be right now without the internet, without radio. And, as good as it is to be fasting from a lot of things, it's sad that normally when there's a catastrophe or there's some kind of plague or calamity, you want to come together. Like, I look at the plague in the history of the church, and times where there's been great outbreak of disease, like the church is filled Like, people came to church to pray, and we came together, and this is strange, and that we're actually being told that the best way to love our brothers and sisters right now is to be socially distant. I mean, that's strange, but we know that we're not made for that for very long. And radio is one of those ways that, like, right now, because people supported radio in the past, this is here now. And we don't know what kind of catastrophes are going to come in the future, and what role Catholic radio may play in the future. But the people who are giving right now, I think God is especially going to bless that, because let's face it, everybody is, like, looking at the budget right now, trying to figure out where's the money going to come from. You know, families are having hard conversations, and I can tell you that the parish, like, our bookkeeper came to me yesterday and says, Father Shawn, can you plug on the Shawn the Baptist show? Like, normally our weekly collection is, you know, like $15,000 or something. Like, it was like a couple $1,000s only, you know, this last weekend. And, like, everybody right now, we're like, how are we going to make that work? But here's the thing with giving. I've always found that if we continue to give where it's needed, even something like Catholic radio, like, we're like, well, what difference does that make? Well, it's here now so that we can be together. Like, we could not put this together right now if we said, oh my gosh, our churches are closed, quick, we need something else. We couldn't do it. We couldn't, like, make Catholic radio happen right now. It's because of faithful people in the past who gave their gifts that this station is here right now when we most need it. And we're just looking for people who will call in and make that gift for the future catastrophe that we can't even see coming yet.
888-447-2425 is the phone number to call. Some words of wisdom from Father Shawn this afternoon. 888-447-2425. Help us out with that pledge. $1,250 is all that's left. Can you give a portion of that? How much of that can you help us with this afternoon? We have 5 minutes remaining now. 5 minutes until the bottom of the hour, and we're hoping to get that to that $3,000 mark. We have $1,750 for this half hour. We have $1,250 to go. That's it. We're over halfway there. If you can help us to get there and put us over the top, that would be so great. 888-447-2425, online at catholicradio.com. We have 4.5 minutes left, so help us out and help us to reach that goal. We're so close. Just a few more calls could put us over the top. Call us this afternoon. It's the Spring Pledge Drive at Catholic Radio Network, 888-447-2425. Father Shawn Tunick is our guest this afternoon, and we were just talking about what families are doing in this time. You know, it's bringing people together in a sense that not like we'd like to be. Like you said, it feels a little counterintuitive, because rather than coming together, we have to keep the social distance. I even go back to 9/11, where people were packed in the churches and praying after that. This situation is just so different than that because of the fact that we have to keep the social distance.
Yeah, and I was trying to compare it to something, because everyone's saying, well, this is unprecedented. And the closest thing I could come to is what it was like around 9/11, where there was a sense of we're maybe not safe, there's something that we're not in control of from outside that is threatening our normal way of life. But you're right, when that happened, we all came together. I mean, the church is packed, and man, you wonder if the devil comes up with all kinds of new things all the time, and this time we've got a catastrophe that actually drives us apart, and that seems like, well, that would be such a horrible thing. And with all the sacrifices that it takes right now, we know that God is always greater. Deus semper maior in Latin. God is always greater. And so there's a lot of suffering right now, but God is greater than our greatest suffering here. So whatever we're going through, God will use it somehow. That's the way suffering works. And I was talking on the show yesterday, and I had Mass this morning with the Sister Servants of Mary, wonderful religious order here in KCK, and they work with the sick and the dying in their homes. And it's the only place I'm able to go where I have Mass with people. So I'm able to get into the convent and have Mass for the sisters. But I was telling them this morning and on the show yesterday that one of the things I've been doing differently this Lent, I started praying in the Liturgy of the Hours, the prayers during set times during the day that the priest prays, and lay people too. But I pray the old version in Latin from 1962 and before, and the first hour of the day is called prima, means first. And part of that hour is that you read from what's called the Martyrology of the church. And most people don't even know this book exists. But we know the kind of saints' days that hit our calendars, like St. Patrick's on March 17th or something. People don't realize there is a book of saints that it's an official liturgical book of the church that every day it gives a list of here are the people that died as a martyr on this day that are in the book. And you read that every day for the first hour. And it hit me as I'm reading through all this. I would see things like every day it's got like, and such saint who I've never heard of, was tied between two palm trees that were bent to the ground, and then when they were released, he was torn in half. Or this person was wrapped in bands covered in oil and then set on fire like a flaming torch. And I'm like, oh my gosh, every day, like a list of this. And then they'll say things like, and his brother with him, and then another person who ran up at the last minute saying, me too, and 400 others. I'm like, 400 others? I mean, how would you like to be a martyr and give your life for Jesus, and you go down in history as, and 400 others?
Right,
But
right.
it really helped me see how just, if you're reading that martyrology every day, just how much the church is familiar with death. Like, that's a normal thing. We're freaking out now over the coronavirus because, oh my gosh, people are dying. And that's tragic, of course it is. But what's helped me is like, the more I read about how death is so normal, like thousands of people giving their life for Jesus every day as a martyr, I'm like, okay, we should be acquainted with death as Christians. And this is what we're celebrating as we come to Easter, that death is not the end. We think like this is the worst thing ever, people could die. Okay, it's sad. It's maybe the worst thing we could imagine in this life, if this life were all there is. But if Easter is real, what we're about to celebrate, then death is not the end. And we can say with St. Paul, death, where is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? Because Jesus has conquered death. And so, yeah, people die. People are going to die from COVID. And that's going to be a great loss. And that's not the end. And so we don't have to fear death. We can read in the martyrology, and 10,000 other people. And it's normal. And we can get used to even and not fear it as much, maybe.
Yeah. Wow. That's very interesting. I want to come back to that because I have a question for you with that. 888-447-2425. We are at the bottom of the hour here. We're 30 minutes past the hour, and we had $1,250 on the board. And so it looks like we didn't quite make that half hour. And again, unless we get a last minute call right now, but we'd love to hear from you at 888-447-2425. $1,250 remaining on the board. What portion of that can you help us with? Call us at 888-447-2425 or online at CatholicRadio.com. You can pledge online as well. So either way, pledge online, pledge on the app, or pledge with a phone call to Catholic Radio Network, 888-447-2425. And we'll update you here in just a little while as well with that. We have 30 minutes to go in the fourth day of our spring pledge drive, and we'd love to hear from you. If you're listening, if Catholic Radio has impacted you, prayerfully consider how you can help us with our pledge drive this week. It's so important to us to help Catholic Radio survive and thrive. 888-447-2425.
Shout out to a couple of the people online here that are on ShawnTheBaptist.org. Joyce Grasco, Lisa Matthews, Andrew Parnell, Ted Woodlock, Christy Colson Imlay, and my mom, Peggy Tunick. So my mom is a big fan of Shawn the Baptist.
And I know Christy, so a shout out to Christy and her husband, Jason.
Yes, Jason and Christy Imlay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Jason's, of course, in diaconate formation with me, so great guy. Got a great sense of humor, too. He's one of the funny guys in the group, I think. So I do want to touch a little bit. You were just talking about sharing these stories about the martyrs, and I always thought it's like St. Paul, Mickey, and companions, I think is one of them.
Yeah,
right?
and companions.
Yeah, I'm thinking, wouldn't that stink to be one of the companions? Yeah, you brought that up before, and I thought, oh, poor guys. The companions.
And I was thinking exactly about that the other day, and I thought, though, think of all the suffering there is in this world right now. There is a sense in which, if I got coronavirus and died, well, that wouldn't be so terrible. I mean, even if I were and companions to somebody, it still means if I die in friendship with Jesus, then I'm in a much better place. So really, the only thing that we should fear with coronavirus is that we would we would die, and we're not good with Jesus. That somehow we've said, I don't need Jesus. When I can work it in, maybe I'll go to Mass, maybe I won't. If that's what you're doing, then be afraid. Be very afraid. But if this is a time to say, maybe I need to get my faith in gear, well then you'll be all right. So not such a bad time then, even if you're end companions.
Right. I just always, it's like they got the short end of the stick. They're one of the companions, not listed, but we know that that's really not important, and I know it wasn't important to them when you really think about it. 888-447-2425. The phone number this afternoon, we have about 27 minutes left. That's it. Before the day wraps up this afternoon, we'd love to hear from you. Online, CatholicRadio.com. Our guest, Father Shawn Tunick, this afternoon. And we're just really kind of talking about a myriad of things here as well. And just the fact that, this is something that can really kind of change. The question's always asked, is God trying to get our attention now? And I think, that's a question that comes up from time to time. But it does, the one thing I am seeing, just like we talked about, people are in more prayer these days, or there's time on our hands, so we have to do something constructive with it. And some people are doing that. Now, the whole point of this is it's a beautiful thing to see that happen. We hope that once things are lifted, that we don't go back to that normal routine and we forget about God again.
Yeah, Pope Francis, had a great reflection the other day, just, how much more we'll treasure those times when we can go to church again, and we can go out and have dinner at a restaurant. And, I'm over at St. Patrick's in KCK right by the Legends, and, it was just normal. You go out there and go to dinner or something. Like, it's empty parking lots. I mean, it's really just surreal out there because no shops are open, no food is open. We really have to think about how much we will love that when we can go back. And speaking of Pope Francis, I don't know if people saw this last week. Pope Francis led one of the most amazing things I've ever seen at St. Peter's. Everyone who knows the liturgy at St. Peter's, I mean, normally you've got the Pope, standing out in front of that huge basilica, and St. Peter's Square is just, filled with 100,000 people, and you have to wait in line forever to get in. But Pope Francis led a prayer service in presence of the Blessed Sacrament to pray against the coronavirus, and it was just him. I mean, they had the whole stage set up where the altar would normally be for Mass at St. Peter's, and it's just the Pope in white with his little spotlight on him, and his little Master of Ceremonies, Monsignor Marini, is sitting back, next, and that's it. I mean, 2 people alone in St. Peter's Square. I wonder if in the history of the church there has ever been a time where the Pope has ever just stood alone in St. Peter's Square like that. And yet he was not alone. He addressed the whole world. And he took Jesus in the monstrance and he held it up in front of it. It looked like an empty St. Peter's Square. And he blessed the world with Jesus in the monstrance, imparting a plenary indulgence to everyone watching at the time. I've never seen anything like it. And if you haven't seen his reflection that he gave there, go and read that. Pray over that with your family. It's beautiful meditation on the apostles who are on the Sea of Galilee and a storm comes up. And we all know how Jesus comes to rescue them because he's asleep in the back of the boat. And they're all worried that we're going to capsize. And, of course, Jesus gets up and he's like, hey, I got this. And, peace, be still. And I think of that meme that went around a lot with Patrick Mahomes. Because we love our Chiefs, but we know that there were a couple of those games where we pulled it out right at the end, and there's these memes the next day online, these pictures, and it's like Patrick Mahomes saying, hey, everybody chill, I got this, don't worry. And that it worked for football, and I think we need to realize that God also has got this. Yep. God is always greater, and he's even greater than Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly. 888-447-2425 is the phone number. Online, CatholicRadio.com. Just had a caller with a pledge. We have $1,500 on the board between now and the top of the hour. We have 23 minutes left, and we need $1,500. We got a $250 pledge. So leaving $1,250 on the boards. Our need only $1,250. I would love to go past that and just really make up what we missed that last half hour. Very doable right now. $1,250 on the board. 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425 or CatholicRadio.com. You can donate there as well. Just $1,250 to get us to the top of the hour this afternoon. 888-447-2425. This is the fourth day of our spring pledge drive at Catholic Radio Network, and the one thing that I just remind people of is this is one of our big fundraisers for the year. We don't come on the air that often, maybe 15 days out of the year. The other 350 days is left to regular programming. So it's the times like this that we really depend on our listeners to help us out, and we are listener supported. So prayerfully consider that pledge to Catholic Radio, and you can make all the difference in the world. We are listener supported. We need your help. And thank you for the pledges that have come in this week. We appreciate it, but we want to keep those pledges coming. $1,250 is what's left on the board. How much of that, or what portion of that, can you help us with this afternoon by calling 888-447-2425, 888-447-2425, also online at CatholicRadio.com. Give us a call this afternoon. We're close to getting that number. It's not that far away, $1,250. And your pledge will make all the difference in the world this afternoon for Catholic Radio. Our guest, Father Shawn Tunick. Father Shawn, we have about 20 minutes or so left this afternoon. So glad you're able to join us. You were talking about, you talked about Pope Francis and what he did, that prayer for the coronavirus, and there's so many things that we're seeing now that really are kind of edifying, because we talk about families getting together, praying. We're seeing other things happen as well. I think the critical part of that too is we obviously, it's kind of like Lent. We go through Lent, and maybe there's something we do. We try to be better. We try to be closer to Christ through Lent. But then once Easter Sunday hits, we think, oh, we're done now. I don't need to do that anymore. And so we obviously don't want to see that happen with this. This is a situation, a pandemic that's going to end at some point. We're going to go back to some normalcy eventually over time, and it's just a matter of we want to make sure that we're still kind of focused on the things we need to be focusing on.
Yeah, and I tell people, I mentioned about Lent, giving things up, adding things. Mm-hmm. I often tell people, don't just give up chocolate, because do something for Lent normally, and this is before coronavirus, do something that is going to be a lasting change. Don't just do something that, like, if you give up chocolate, great. I can do that too, and then I'm going to slam some chocolate bunnies on Easter Sunday. I'm going to get as many Russell Stover cream eggs as I can after the Easter Vigil. Okay, so yeah, I discipline myself during Lent, but then I just go back to it. Rather, what can you do right now during coronavirus time? This great little retreat that we have, what lasting changes can you make? It takes about, I think it's like 4 weeks or something to make a new habit, like to break an old habit and make a new habit. We are very much creatures of habit, and it takes a big intervention to get us off our habits. Well, guess what? We've got it. Mm-hmm. So this is it. We didn't choose it, but it chose us. And so now we have a chance to break a lot of habits. So I encourage you, rather than sit around and say, oh my gosh, coronavirus is just killing us, and we're just, how can you come out of this a victor? Okay, we don't have to be the victim of our environment. Okay, we live in an environment in which there are physical evils like coronavirus. We're talking about, did God send this as a wake-up call? Well, we certainly don't have to believe that. It's not like God sits up in heaven angry at us and says, how can I stick it to him today? Now, that said, could God, as any good parent, look down and say, you know what, I think the world needs a big reboot right now, and so maybe I'm going to allow this. I don't know. We don't have to say God sent it. We can say God allowed it. That much we know, but we don't have to have it be something that we're a victim of. We can be a victor. A weak man is a victim of his environment, but a strong man is a victor in any environment, even coronavirus. So if we're strong in our faith, if we make lasting changes, like this is what, people will look back and say, well, this is when we started having dinner together as a family. This is when we started praying together. This is when we started going on a walk together. Think of all the things you could do right now that 10 years you'll look back and say, well, it was really that coronavirus thing that got us doing, whatever. This could be a great time.
Yeah, great point. 888-447-2425. 42 minutes past the hour. About 17 and a half minutes left. with our final pledge of the day, and we're looking for $1,500. We have a $250 pledge now, so $1,250 is all that remains. That's very doable. What portion of that can you help us with as we wrap up the day today? 888-447-2425, 888-447-2425. Help Catholic Radio. We are on throughout the entire network this week. And so we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to see those pledges continue to come in. This is how Catholic Radio is funded, is through our listeners. 99% of the funds that come in through the pledge drives and things like that, we are listener supported. That's how it happens. 888-447-2425. Again, prayerfully consider that pledge. You can donate online as well at catholicradio.com. And we have, again, about 16 and a half minutes left, and we have $1,250 up on the board. Help us out and give us your pledge this afternoon at Catholic Radio Network. Father Shawn Tunick is our guest this afternoon. One thing that I didn't realize today, and that Charles, one of the guys here in the office, texted me saying that today is the 15-year anniversary of the death of John Paul II.
That's right.
Yeah, so, and I guess I'd be curious, because I'm a huge fan of John Paul, but I'd be curious of your thoughts on him and how he has impacted you.
Yeah, I'd say he is one of the biggest inspirations for what eventually led to my vocation to be a priest.
Wow.
You know, I remember just as I started to study and learn our faith more, I would read stuff that he wrote, and it would just be like, I just eat it up. I gotta get more of this. And I mean, he gave an audience today from St. Peter's. I gotta go read it. And I love the fact that he challenged our society. He had been through a lot as a young man in Poland and as a priest in Poland. I mean, we talk like today our churches are closed. John Paul lived through the communist World War II occupation in Poland, and where, I mean, he was ordained in secret, you know, because they feared for their life if they were found out. And so I think in my life, I know, John the Baptist being my patron, like, you want to feel like your life makes some big difference. You know, what can I do that God created me to do, that I'm supposed to do, that nobody else has that mission? I mean, here's John Paul that lived a singular mission that God gave him, and, you know, he was faithful to it his whole life. He showed us how to live. He showed us how to die. Those images of him at the end of his life, you know, here's this strong man who preached truth to power in Victory Square in Poland, and, you know, be not afraid, he would yell out and tell us. And at the end of his life, I got to see him in 2002 in Toronto at World Youth Day. And I remember I loved hearing him say, be not afraid. And so in his homily, he was speaking in English at the big closing mass. And I remember he was really weak and feeble, but he kind of pounded his papers on his podium and said, be not afraid. And I'm like, oh gosh, I got to hear John Paul, my hero, say his famous line in English. And then I realized what he had said was, if you hear God calling you to be a priest, be not afraid to say yes. And at this time, I'm a rich software engineer, just rocking it at Sprint, and I'm like, hey, he's not talking to me, is he? I mean, there are like a couple million people here. I mean, he doesn't mean me. But man, I went back and I was rocked, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I don't want to say no to God. And a year later, I went to make a pilgrimage to Italy, got to see him up close and personal in St. Peter's Square, and I really felt the call to go home and go to seminary, quit my job, sold my house, and moved to a little tiny room in Mundelein, Illinois, and was ordained in 2008, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. Wow, that's incredible. There were so many things about John Paul that just amazed me. I mean, the fact that they said he would read, he'd sit and read, and somebody would be reading to him while he was reading something. And
I wish you could do that.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that exactly?
I have a hard time listening to music with words while I'm working on something. It distracts me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's like I've got to focus, you know.
But that moment at the end of his life, the anniversary of his death here, I remember watching it live on TV and waiting for the lights to. I thought they'd turn out the lights in the papal apartment, and actually after he passed, they turned them on because there was, business to take care of. And I had some friends that were in St. Peter's Square at the time. Shout out to Emily Beyer, a friend of mine who was there at the time and reported what it was like to be in the square. And of course his funeral. I mean, I got up at what it was like 2, 3 in the morning at seminary to watch the funeral live from Rome, and it's amazing because just a couple years ago, I was able to go on a pilgrimage to Rome with my canon law class from Catholic University, and celebrate Mass as a priest now on the altar of his tomb. And I thought back to that time all those years ago when I was under his window discerning, should I be a priest? And there I was celebrating Mass over the tomb of Saint John Paul the Great. I mean, his body right below me as I'm consecrating the Eucharist on top of it. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, that's what a great story. Thank you for sharing that. We have about 11 and a half minutes left, 48 minutes past the hour. We have $1,250 on the board, and we have just a little bit of time left. Can you help us to reach that $1,250 that we need to reach our goal for this half hour? 888-447-2425, 888-447-2425. Again, no amount is too small. What can you help us with? Prayerfully consider that pledge here at Catholic Radio. Phone number 888-447-2425. Online at CatholicRadio.com. And again, we have 11 minutes left this afternoon. Help us out. The fourth day of 5 days of our spring pledge drive at Catholic Radio Network. Father Shawn Tunick is our guest. You know, one of the things I do want to talk about, Father Shawn, we were talking about John Paul, and really at the end of his life, and I think I'm a believer that he did this on purpose to show that suffering is okay. He showed it to us. We saw him trembling. We saw, the last days of his life, and he was not afraid to share that with the world. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, so many times today, and I think of our grandparents, like right now, who are in nursing homes, and we can't go visit them, and how maybe one of the things we're realizing is like how important they are. I know my grandparents are in a nursing home up in Lansing, and I used to go visit them, kind of sporadically even, and now that I can't go, like, wow, I wish I could go like knock on their window and say hi or something. But it's easy for us to marginalize, I think, the elderly and this society that is so go, 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 and you gotta produce and you gotta create value. And so what can the elderly contribute? And so it's easy for them to be forgotten. And so I would just, I think John Paul showed us that no, there is every ounce of human dignity in someone even who is elderly, who is suffering, who has Parkinson's like he did at the end of his life, who couldn't even speak. I mean, I think of him going to the window that last Sunday of his life for the Angelus, and he tried to bless everybody. He couldn't, and he's just drooling, and he couldn't even control it. Like, how many people have that kind of humility today to display before the world their weakness? And I think John Paul was doing that. He showed us it's okay to be weak and vulnerable. I think there are a lot of people out right now who are maybe panicking because they maybe feel like they're weak, they're vulnerable, they're scared about this disease. We live in a world where we think we have everything under control. John Paul showed us what it's like to live and not have it all under control, and that it's okay, that we don't lose any of our dignity, and that weakness, God actually can work with. And so, I like to think of myself as kind of a wounded healer kind of person. I experienced a lot of suffering, pain in my own life, and rather than it be something that you want to hide from, it's actually something that when you share with people, I think everyone out there tries to live in this perfect. We're on Facebook right now. It's like I'm live broadcasting on Facebook. We're live broadcasting on Facebook. There's kind of this Facebook syndrome where everybody puts on Facebook like just the best things about themselves.
Right.
Like you see this picture of this family that's like, oh my gosh, look at that family. They're amazing. I wish my family was like that. When that's like a one moment in time snapshot. We don't put, John Paul II at his window drooling, unable to speak out there. We put him as a young man with, his arm in the air and, preaching the gospel. But he's all of that, and so are we. We're our weakness, and I think one of the worst things we could do is try to eliminate public weakness in people from the church. It's when we're weak that we're strong, St. Paul says. And so anybody out there who feels overwhelmed right now, who is listening to this and wondering, Does God see me? Does God care? How am I going to make it work? How am I going to make it happen? I can't give money to the radio. Are you kidding me? I don't know how it's going to work. All right, we all are like that right now. Ain't nobody right now got it all together. And that's one way that we might not be able physically to be together, but spiritually, pray for those people right now that you know are hurting, and for the people that need prayers. Somehow, magically, in God's grace, all those prayers come before the throne of God in heaven, and they get answered. We don't know exactly how, but they get answered, and we'll see in eternity maybe what this was all about and what our prayers really did. I know I hope to see that. That's one of the great things I hope to see in heaven, what our prayers really did. And so keep those prayers coming, and don't be afraid to be weak and ask for help.
Absolutely. 888-447-2425 is the number. We have about 6.5 minutes left. That's it till the top of the hour. $1,250 remains on the board. And if you want to give a last minute pledge, you certainly can do that. We'll be here for a few minutes after 6 o'clock Central Time. So at the top of the hour, we wrap things up for the fourth day, but we will be around for a little bit. But we'd love to get a pledge from you, and you still have a few minutes to do that at 888-447-2425 or online at catholicradio.com, and help us to get to that $1,500 mark for this half hour. We have $250 in the have column, $1,250 in the need column. What portion of that can you help us with as we wrap up the fourth day of our Spring Pledge Drive? 888-447-2425. Father Shawn Tunick is our guest. It's always a pleasure to have Father Shawn in, who's become a great friend of Catholic Radio and has been a great supporter as well. And so we're so glad you're here. But here we are in the last minutes. I guess if there's something on your heart you'd like to share, maybe it's something about what folks need to be. The one thing I guess I will say, folks that have faith, people I know that with faith really are handling this well. It's amazing. I sometimes wonder how people who don't have a faith life really can function sometimes, especially in a situation like this.
Yeah, this last weekend we had the reading of the raising of Lazarus from the dead. Probably, I think, the greatest miracle Jesus ever worked on earth. He raised a couple people from the dead, but as I preached this weekend, I was saying, the son of the widow of Nain, who he raised, he had just died. I mean, they're just carrying him out of the house, just died. The daughter of Jairus, she had just died too. Lazarus was dead for 4 days. In Jewish law, to be dead for 3 days was, you're definitely dead. You're not just dead, you're also legally dead. So that's serious. Lazarus has been dead 4 days. So there's no doubt that he's dead. Even Martha and Mary, his best friends who have faith, Martha even says, Lord, I believe even now you can do anything. They can't see what Jesus is about to do. They think, well, if you had been here, none of this would have happened. And we just hear the pain in their voice. Like, these aren't random people. The scriptures tell us, St. John is telling us in the scriptures, these are his friends. Jesus loved Lazarus and Martha and Mary, his sisters. Jesus loves them, and he lets Lazarus die. I mean, that's the plain truth of the scripture. Jesus let Lazarus die. And we tend to focus in the scripture on the passages where, if we just pray, God will hear you, knock and the door will be open, ask and you'll receive. And we know that that's true, but it is also true that God may allow some great suffering. And clearly he's doing that right now. But the difference is, Martha and Mary could not envision a world where Jesus could make things better. That Lazarus is dead, and now it's too late. You can't make good out of this, Jesus. We've seen you heal people. We've seen you touch people and heal them. We've seen you smear mud in people's eyes and restore their sight. We've seen you lift up people that are lying paralyzed on mats. We've even seen you cure a centurion servant who is miles away. All that you did, but now Lazarus is dead and there is no hope. And they just can't imagine what God was about to do. But notice Jesus does two things. He enters into the suffering. So even though Jesus in his divinity knows that I'm about to raise Lazarus from the dead, he doesn't say, hey, I'll knock it off. I'm here. It'll be all right. He cries. Jesus weeps with those who are weeping. So if you're weeping right now, if you are sad, if you are suffering because of things that have been lost because of coronavirus, maybe you know people that have died, good, okay? Be sad, mourn. We're not saying like, oh, we're Christians, so be happy in the face of coronavirus. Far from it. Jesus wept, but but then Jesus did something that nobody expected and worked a grace and a miracle that they could never imagine, and he'll definitely do the same thing here with coronavirus, even if we don't see it until the other side of eternity. I'm confident that will happen. I don't know what it'll look like, but that's the faith we have. We weep and mourn for what is clearly a natural evil, but then we have faith that one day all will be well, and all manner of things will be well.
Well, Father Shawn, it's always a pleasure to have you in, and we're getting right up to the end of the hour here. We have about 2 minutes to remain. 2 minutes remain, and again, if you want to get that last minute pledge in, we'll give you the phone number one more time, 888-447-2425, online at catholicradio.com as we wrap up day number 4 of our spring pledge drive here at Catholic Radio Network. Again, 888-444-2425. Or 888-447-2425. 888-447-2425 is the phone number to call, and we still have a couple of minutes. We'll be here for just a few minutes to answer the phones once we switch back to the network. And again, our thanks to all the folks who have made pledges this week. We've had over 300 calls for pledges, a lot of new donors that have come in and pledged as well. But we still have a ways to go. We'll be doing one more day tomorrow and then back to regular programming on Saturday. And again, thanks to all the folks who have been in this week to help us out. 888-447-2425 is the phone number here at Catholic Radio Network. Help us out with the final minute that we have. And again, 1250 still remains on the board. You can still get a call in under the gun here if you'd like to this afternoon. And of course, we're coming up on the top of the hour as we'll go back to regular programming here in just about a minute. Father Shawn, again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
I always thought when I was in my car that maybe I'd like to have a radio show someday, and I loved what I was hearing on EWTN, and now I've got the Shawn the Baptist show. So go to ShawnTheBaptist.org. I've got my homilies, all 460 some of them out there, and I notice a lot of priests seem to like that as they look for homilies maybe. 3, 6, and 9 years ago seem to get a lot of hits each weekend. But something new, the Shawn the Baptist show. Check that out. So ShawnTheBaptist.org, SHAWN, thebaptist.org. St. John the Baptist, pray for us.
Absolutely. So year A homilies are hot right now then, is that what you're saying?
Year A homilies are indeed hot. That's a 3-year cycle of readings. We're in year A, so that means that 3 years ago was the same readings, and 6 and 9, and but these are coronavirus homilies, so 3 years from now, I don't know if they'll make sense. But we're going to run out of coronavirus material for homilies. Right now it's great, but if this drags on for 3 months, I don't know if I can still preach on coronavirus for the 800th time.
All right, Father Shawn, thanks so much. God bless you. And we're going to head back to the network now as we wrap up our pledge drive on Catholic Radio Network.
Hey, Shawn the Baptist listeners. Thanks for joining in online. Thanks for everyone who called. I see Cindy Cohn and Cindy Landry and Mary Patricia Paula Davis. And thank you all. Blessings from KEXS Live 1090 in Kansas City. And share this. There will be no Shawn the Baptist live show at 6:30 tonight because I'm in this studio and not my home studio. So share this around and be sure to contribute to the radio station, KEXS 1090. Go online. Give them a donation. Give a donation to your parish. I know they really need it too. Okay? And may Almighty God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. St. John the Baptist, pray for us.